So at this point, I have a fully built cup with a cylindrical body, circular base attached, and a pencil thin coil lowered down into the bottom of the cup. So that's the building stage, which I've now completed. At this point, now it's time to move on to the smoothing stage, because building is never pretty, but now it's time to make the cup definitely look prettier, smoother, cleaner, and just generally more appealing to drink out of. You want it to look more user-friendly. I recommend having a sponge handy, like you've been provided to work with while at home or in class. Now, my sponge had a scrubber side, but I ripped it off. I didn't want that to interfere with the clay and scratch it up too much. Always work with a damp sponge, never a soaking wet sponge, because too much water can be just as bad for clay as too much air. So you always want to find a nice middle ground. And then when you have your damp sponge, just proceed to start, kind of a scrubbing technique. You can even use your thumb and do kind of a circular motion with your thumb if you prefer that. But I recommend at least beginning to smooth with your sponge before you start introducing smoothing with your thumb. Okay? And then just go round and round, completely inside first. And then later we'll focus our attention to smoothing the outside of the cup. But for right now, we're going to focus on the interior. Now, I do have that ugly seam, interior seam, which will be a little stubborn. So expect that. And to deal with that seam, you might want to make a sponge on a stick tool, like I had mentioned in a previous video. That'll be helpful. So just take a damp sponge and secure it with a rubber band or a hair tie to a pencil or pen. And then you can start kind of doing like a scrubbing technique over that seam. You can use your thumb as well, do a combination of both, whatever works. Anything will be an improvement from what you start off with, okay? You might not completely remove evidence of the seam, but that's okay. Anything that is hand-built in a ceramics class will have flaws to it. It will have imperfections. It'll be perfectly imperfect. And it's those imperfections that definitely give your work character and personality. So you don't have to obsessively smooth the interior. Just do what you can. Now, dealing with the coil down in the bottom will also be a little tricky. That coil might be a little stubborn. So expect that. But your sponge on a stick tool will help you deal with removing evidence of the coil if possible. We don't want people to know there's a coil ring living down in the bottom of our cup. It's just there as a security measurement to reinforce the base to the cup body. But we don't want people to see it. We don't want people to know it's there. And moisture could get trapped in that coil. So, and mold can grow. If like you're drinking coffee out of this and coffee gets stuck in there. So you definitely want the interior base of your cup as smooth as possible. Now, when it comes to that outer seam, that's going to be another stubborn area as well. And the outer seam is where you had a flap, where you had an overlap area. It's going to be a noticeable vertical bump. Use your sponge again to smooth the exterior at this point. Once you're happy with smoothing the interior, that's when you move on to the exterior, as I'm doing right now. And if you notice cracks along the rim, definitely deal with those immediately. Kind of smooth those away, massage those cracks away a bit with your sponge. We want to try to remove that memory from the clay. And continue to take your sponge, drag it vertically, then horizontally, and then you can do a circular motion, whatever works for you. And then just focus on kind of the cup body. You can kind of ignore temporarily the bottom half where you see those obvious popsicle sticks. We'll get to that in a few seconds. But in the meantime, just smooth all around with your sponge. And, again, this is not difficult work. It's just a little time consuming. That's all. And then go over the popsicle stick area with your sponge as well. And then you're going to want a gift card, an expired gift card, to help you scrape as well. Or you can use the rib tool you have at home from a previous clay kit. You're going to want to use a straight edge. You can use the narrow end, but the wide straight edge is going to be your best bet. So I recommend starting off with your rib tool and then maybe graduating to an expired gift card. That'll be helpful. And scrape up and down, side to side. Maybe go back to sponging if you want, and then go back to your rib tool. So it's a bit of a combination between rib tool, sponge, and fingertips. But just do whatever you can to remove evidence of the outer seam and the popsicle stick marks at the very bottom. You might not completely remove evidence, but as I've said before, any improvement helps. Any bit of scraping will help. And the gift card definitely has more strength to it than the thin rib tool I sent home with you in the past. And just, shave down a little bit of clay at a time, and you'll see that bump not be as noticeable. And same thing with your popsicle stick marks. Just scrape it down, scrape over it, shave some clay down off of that if you need to. Because again, we don't want people to know we have excess clay there. We're trying to remove evidence of that. So just do a little back and forth between your gift card and sponging until you are happy, and allow time for this too. And then once you're content, it will be time to move on to the next step.